The morning sun filtered through the blinds of Io's lecky apartment, casting warm lines across the living room, as if even the light wanted to bless his new beginning. He stood in front of the mirror in a crisp white kaftan, his beard freshly trimmed, his heart beating with the soft excitement of a man who had finally decided to move on. 4 years. That's how long he'd lived as a single father, raising his son, Daniel, after losing his first wife, Thomasin, to childbirth complications. Grief slowed him. Fatherhood kept him grounded. But loneliness dug into him like a wet cold. Today, all that felt different. He tied his watch, smiled at his reflection, then turned to see Daniel seated on the couch, tiny legs dangling, swinging, eyes glued to his cartoon but his mind clearly somewhere else. "You're quiet today," Io said, kneeling beside him. Daniel blinked. "Daddy, do we really have to go?" Io felt the small pinch in his chest again. "We're not just going anywhere, son. We're joining a new family." "A new mummy." Daniel's voice was small. "Yes," Io said, forcing a soft smile. "Folake is kind. She loves you already." Daniel didn't respond. His eyes drifted back to the screen, but his fingers twisted nervously around each other. Io brushed his cheek gently. "You'll like her. I promise." But something in Daniel's silence tugged at Io again, something he tried to shake off. Excitement overshadowed caution. He wanted this marriage to work. He wanted a companion. He wanted stability around his son. He wanted to stop feeling alone in a house filled with memories. By noon, Io and Daniel arrived at the church, welcomed by warm smiles, praise choruses floating from the choir, and the sweet scent of flowers. Folake stood by the entrance in a flowing emerald gown, her dark skin glowing, her smile bright and disarming. She bent to Daniel's height, spreading her arms. "Come here, sweetheart," she said. Daniel just stayed, not moving. Io laughed nervously and nudged him. "Say hi." Daniel stepped forward reluctantly. Folake hugged him lightly, her eyes flickering just for a second. If Io wasn't distracted by guests congratulating him, he might have noticed a change in her eyes. But he missed it. The ceremony flowed beautifully. Folake's vows were poetic, tender, even tearful. Everyone praised Io for finding a woman who had the patience to love a man with a child. They called Folake a blessing. They said she radiated humility. Only Daniel stayed withdrawn, his small fingers clutching Io's sleeve throughout the reception. That night, in their new shared home, Io tucked Daniel in. "Everything's going to be great," he whispered. Daniel didn't answer. From the doorway, Folake watched them with unreadable eyes. The new beginning had arrived, but the storm was still quiet. The first week in the new home was filled with warm meals, soft laughter, and the kind of careful politeness newly blended families used to survive early days. Folake seemed perfect, maybe too perfect. She cooked Daniel's favorite meals, bought him new shirts, helped arrange his books, and insisted he call her Mummy Folake. But Daniel didn't. Every morning before school, he would tug at Io's sleeve. "Daddy, please don't leave me." Io would crouch, kiss his forehead, and reassure him that nothing bad would happen. He didn't see how Daniel flinched when Folake placed her hand on his shoulder. One afternoon, Io returned early from work. The house was oddly silent. He found Folake sweeping the sitting room. "Where's Daniel?" "Oh, he's upstairs napping," she said too quickly. "He was cranky today." Io nodded and went upstairs, pushing Daniel's door open gently. He expected to see his son sleeping peacefully. Instead, Daniel sat on the floor, arms wrapped around himself, eyes red. "Buddy, what's wrong?" Io rushed to his side. Daniel shook his head. "Nothing." "Did you cry?" "No." Io exhaled. "Talk to me." Daniel looked up, eyes shining. "I don't want to stay here when you're not home." "Why?" He swallowed. She doesn't like me when you're not around." Io froze. "Who?" "Your new wife." Io blinked, confusion mixing with irritation. "Daniel, that's not true. She's trying her best to be nice." "I'm not lying," Daniel whispered. But Io, eager to keep peace, eager to prove to himself he had made a good choice, dismissed the warning. He hugged his son. "It's a new home. You just need time." Daniel leaned into him, but his eyes remained full of fear Io couldn't interpret. A week later, Io received a work invitation, a 3-day managerial conference in Abuja. He almost declined instantly. He hated leaving Daniel behind. But Folake stepped in with a warm smile. "Go, my love. I'll take care of everything." Io hesitated. "I'm not sure he's ready." "He'll be fine," she insisted. "He needs to get used to me, too." That night, Daniel overheard the conversation. He crept into Io's room, climbing onto the bed with trembling hands. "Daddy, please don't leave me with her." Io sighed, pulling him close. "Daniel, she likes you. Why do you keep saying these things?" "Because it's true." Io stroked his head gently. "She hasn't done anything wrong." Daniel opened his mouth, closed it, then cried silently. If Io had slowed down, listened more, questioned deeper, maybe everything would have changed. Instead, he chalked it up to fear change. The next morning, Io packed his suitcase. Daniel clung to his legs at the door. "You'll be okay," Io whispered. Folake smiled behind him, though her eyes carried something sharp. Io kissed Daniel's cheek, hugged him tightly, then drove off. Daniel stood at the gate, small shoulders shaking. Folake watched the SUV disappear before turning slowly to Daniel with a cold, thin smile not meant for Io's eyes. "Let's get some rules straight." Everything changed in one breath. The moment Io's taillights vanished from the street, Folake dropped her sweet tone like a mask falling from a stage actor. "Go inside," she snapped. Daniel hesitated. "Ma." "I said inside." Her voice cracked like a whip. Daniel scurried into the living room. "From today, you will not scatter this house," she said, pacing. "No toys anywhere. No noise. No running. No touching anything that's not yours. Do you hear me?" Daniel nodded quickly. "Speak." "Yes, Ma," he yelped. She leaned close. "And don't you dare tell your father anything. If you do, he'll send you away. And you'll live in an orphanage. You want that?" Daniel shook violently, tears filling his eyes. "That's what I thought." The house suddenly felt colder. Even the air felt heavier. Before noon, she had Daniel sweeping the entire sitting room, washing plates, folding laundry, tasks too big for a 7-year-old. When he made mistakes, she hissed, "Useless boy," under her breath. At lunch, she cooked jollof rice and dished only for herself. "What about me?" Daniel whispered. "You didn't earn it," she said and turned on the TV. Daniel sat quietly on the floor, stomach growling. Later that evening, while she laughed loudly on a phone call, Daniel crouched in the corner, drawing tiny circles on the tiled floor with his finger, wishing his father would come home. But Io was miles away, smiling at messages that read, "We're fine, darling. Daniel is adjusting well." The biggest lies are often the ones wrapped in the softest words. By the second day, Folake's cruelty deepened like a shadow stretching across the house. She woke Daniel before sunrise, ordering him to fetch buckets of water even though the house had a functioning water heater. When he struggled to lift the bucket, she scowled. "Are you stupid? Use your strength." He slipped. The bucket spilled. Water spread across the floor. Folake slapped him across the face. The sound echoed. Daniel's small hand flew to his cheek as tears blurred his vision. "If you cry, I'll double it," she threatened. He swallowed the sobs. She forced him to clean every spill on his knees while she drank tea and scrolled through her phone. When he finally finished, exhausted, she ordered him to carry out more chores. His small hands trembled with every step. She accused him of trying to destroy her marriage, repeating the phrase until it burrowed into his mind like poison. By afternoon, she denied him lunch again. Daniel tried to drink water to fill his stomach, but she snatched the cup from him. "Not in my house," she said coldly. Daniel retreated to his room and cried into his pillow. He reached for his phone, the one Io bought him for emergencies. For a moment, courage flickered. He typed, "Daddy, please come home." Before he could hit send, footsteps approached. He panicked, deleted the message, and hid the phone under his mattress. Folake burst in. "What are you hiding?" "And nothing." She searched the bed, found the phone, and her eyes darkened. "So this is how you want to start." She snatched it and stormed out. Daniel curled into a ball. Outside, thunder rumbled faintly. A storm was coming, and Io was still far from home. Io woke with a start, the kind that feels like someone tapped your shoulder inside a dream. For a moment he didn't know where he was. The plush Abuja hotel room felt unfamiliar in the gray morning light filtering through half-closed curtains. The AC hummed gently, but the air felt thick, too thick for comfort. He sat up, grabbed his phone, and checked the time. 6:12 a.m. No calls, no texts, no "Daddy good morning" message from Daniel, something that usually greeted him before sunrise. Instead, a single bright blue message from Folake. "Good morning, my love. Hope you slept well." He read it twice, then locked the phone without replying. Something inside him tugged. Not anxiety, something deeper. Instinct. A father's instinct. The same instinct that told him when Daniel was sick, sad, or scared even before the boy opened his mouth. He dialed home instantly. Folake answered on the first ring. Too fast. "Good morning, sweetheart." Io rubbed his forehead. "How's my boy?" Put him on the phone. There was a small pause, half a second, but Io felt it. "He's still sleeping," she said lightly. "He was cranky yesterday, so I let him rest." Io frowned slightly. "Cranky how?" "Oh, you know children," she laughed. "Is adjusting. But don't worry, everything's fine." He forced a smile she couldn't see. "Wake him anyway. I want to talk to him." Her tone shifted slightly, the smallest crack. "Io, don't disturb him. Let him sleep." "Wake him." Another pause. "Io, you're overreacting." He exhaled, trying not to get irritated. "Fine. I'll call later." He ended the call and sat there in the quiet room, heart thumping too loudly. During the conference later that day, Io struggled to focus. The board chairman spoke about strategy, expansion, and projections, but Io's mind strayed again and again to Daniel's face, the uncertainty in the boy's eyes since the wedding, the way he clung to Io's sleeve before he left for Abuja. By early afternoon, he stepped out of the conference hall and called again. This time, Daniel answered. "Daddy." Io felt something loosen in his chest. "My boy, how are you?" Silence. Then a whisper. "Daddy, can you come home?" Io froze. "Why? What's wrong?" Daniel breathed shakily. "Just come." Before Io could press further, there was shuffling, the sound of the phone being snatched. Falake's voice filled the speaker. "Io." He grabbed the phone. "This boy is just acting out." "What's wrong with him?" Io demanded. "Nothing," she insisted sharply. "He's fine. Stop stressing us." The call ended abruptly. Io stood in the hallway, phone in hand, pulse racing. Something wasn't right. Something was terribly, terribly off, and he could no longer convince himself otherwise. Daniel sat on the cold tile floor of the guest room, hugging his knees. His cheeks still burned from the slap Folake had given him that morning. The door was closed, not locked, but he didn't dare move. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that made you afraid to breathe. His stomach grumbled loudly. He hadn't eaten breakfast. He didn't know if he'd get lunch. He pressed his small palms against his belly to silence it. More hours passed. Folake's slippers tapped the corridor occasionally, a sound that made him freeze every time. He sat upright for long stretches, praying Io would call again, praying Folake wouldn't find another reason to punish him. Around 3 p.m., the house went quiet. Too quiet. Daniel heard the back door open, the sound of running tap water, plastic bags rustling. She must be watering the plants or washing something outside. A moment of freedom. A tiny window. He got up quickly, tiptoed out of the room, and made his way to Io's bedroom. His heart pounded. His hands shook. But desperation was louder than fear. Io's work phone, the backup device, sat on the bedside table. Daniel grabbed it. His fingers typed clumsily, tears filling his eyes as he wrote, "Daddy, please come home, I am scared." He hesitated only a second before his thumb went toward the send button. Then, a door slammed. "Daniel!" Folake's voice boomed angrily. He panicked, deleted the message immediately, shoved the phone back exactly where it was, and ran back to the guest room just as footsteps thundered up the stairs. The door burst open. Folake stood there, breathing hard, plastic bag in hand. "Where were you?" Daniel trembled. I just... She stormed inside, grabbed him by the arm, and shook him violently. "You left the room. I told you not to move. You useless child." She slapped him. Hard. Daniel's head jerked sideways. "You want your father to hate me? You want to turn him against me? Answer me. No." She dragged him by the neck of his shirt down the hallway, ignoring his stumbling feet. She opened the darkest room in the house, the store closet, empty except for old buckets and boxes. "You like sneaking around," she hissed. "Stay here." She shoved him inside and slammed the door. Daniel fell to his knees. The floor was rough and cold. The air smelled dusty. He curled into himself and began to cry softly. Everything inside him wanted his father. He whispered into his hands, "Daddy, please come home. Please." Around 5 p.m., Folake stepped out again, locking the main gate carelessly. She didn't realize the storeroom door hadn't latched properly when she shoved Daniel in it earlier. Daniel pushed it quietly and it opened. His legs hurt from kneeling. His cheek stung. His stomach was twisting with hunger. He stepped into the backyard for air. He didn't even think about running away. He just wanted to breathe without being hit for breathing wrong. That was when Mama Kai saw him. She was in her backyard hanging clothes when she spotted a small figure by the fence. At first she thought it was one of the neighborhood kids, but when she came closer, her heart dropped. "Daniel," she called gently. He turned. The moment she saw the bruise on his arm, the dried tear lines on his face, the way he held himself like someone afraid to exist, she froze. "Come here," she whispered. He stepped closer slowly. "Oh my God," she murmured, crouching to his height. "Who did this to you?" Daniel shook his head rapidly. "It's nothing. It's not nothing." She touched his arm gently. He winced. "Tell me the truth. Is it your stepmother?" Daniel's lips quivered. He whispered, barely audible, "Please, don't tell anybody." Before she could say another word, a car pulled into the compound. Folake's car. Her eyes locked on Daniel and Mama Kai instantly, and hate flickered in them. "Is there a problem?" she asked sharply. Mama Kai stood tall. "I was greeting the boy." "Well, he doesn't need greeting," Folake snapped. "Let's go inside." She grabbed Daniel's wrist, too hard, and dragged him into the house like a criminal. The shouting began almost immediately. Mama Kai's eyes filled with tears. She went inside her house and paced. She didn't have a real picture of the bruise, but she had seen enough. She held her phone, prayed softly, then sent a simple message to Io. "Io, please call me. It's urgent. It's about Daniel." Inside the house, Folake locked the door and turned to Daniel with a fury that made the walls shrink. "So you started reporting me to strangers." "I didn't." She slapped him before he finished speaking. "You want to embarrass me? Make people think I'm wicked." Daniel cried softly. "I didn't say anything." "Shut up." She dragged him to the kitchen, poured raw rice onto the floor, spread it out with her foot, and pointed. "Kneel." Daniel hesitated for half a second. That was all it took. She grabbed his shirt and pushed him down. His knees hit the grains. Pain shot through his legs like tiny knives. "Don't move," she hissed. "If you shift, I'll pour hot water on the floor next time. You hear me?" Daniel nodded quickly, tears spilling. Folake sat on a chair, scrolled through her phone, ate biscuits, chatted loudly, laughed occasionally, all while Daniel knelt on raw rice behind her. Minutes turned to an hour. An hour turned to 2. Each time he tried adjusting from the pain, she hit the back of his head. "You're weak," she muttered. "Your father spoilt you. You think you can control him. Not in this house." By evening, she finally allowed him to stand. His legs buckled. He stumbled to the wall. "Look at you," she scoffed. "Pathetic." Upstairs, she locked him in his room again. Daniel curled on the bed and sobbed until he fell asleep. Meanwhile in Abuja, Io received Mama Kai's message. He stepped out of the conference instantly and called her. She didn't waste time. Io, something is wrong. I saw your son. He looks scared. And he has bruises. Real bruises. Io's breath left his body. Bruises? On my child. Yes, she said, voice shaking. Please come home. She sent him a reenacted photo, her arm simulating what she saw. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Io felt his soul collapse. He booked the next flight immediately. He didn't care about the company. He didn't care about the conference. He didn't care about anything. His son needed him, and he had left him in danger. Io barely slept that night. He paced the hotel room for hours, checking his phone every few minutes. His heart hammered violently any time he imagined Daniel's small voice whispering, "Daddy, come home." At dawn he grabbed his phone and called again. Full Lake answered with a voice too bright. "My love, you're awake early." Put Daniel on the phone. Io said, voice flat. He's still sleeping. Wake him. Io, calm down. Wake him up. The line went silent. Then, click, she hung up. Io stood frozen. Then his phone buzzed. A picture message from Mama Kai. He opened it. Even though it was a reenacted bruise she drew on herself, it resembled exactly what she'd seen on Daniel's skin. Dark, angry, painful. Io felt the ground drop from under him. His breath was strangled in his throat. Tay stung his eyes. He called Mama Kai immediately. She explained everything she saw in full detail. Daniel's fear, the bruise, the way he winced, how Folate grabbed him, how the child looked so hungry, so tired, so broken. By the time she finished, Io felt like he had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. He hung up, grabbed his bag. I walked out of the hotel without checking out. He would catch the earliest flight. If not a flight, then a bus. If not a bus, then a car. If not a car, then he would run. Nothing mattered except getting home. Every second felt like a countdown. He prayed one thing over and over as he rushed out of the hotel lobby. God, please let my son be alive when I get there. The Lagos flight landed just after 4 p.m., but Io felt like it had taken years. The moment the plane doors opened, he pushed past passengers, barely muttering apologies. He grabbed his small carry-on and ran straight out of the terminal like a man escaping fire. His palms were sweaty. His heartbeat wasn't steady. His breathing was too loud. Everything inside him felt like it was vibrating. He tried calling Folake again. No answer. He tried again. Still no answer. The third time, the call didn't even ring. It went straight to voicemail. That was when fear took over. Not anxiety. Not worry. Fear. He jumped into a taxi and told the driver, "Lekki Phase 1. Fast as you can. I'll pay anything." The driver glanced at him through the rearview mirror, saw the panic, and didn't argue. He pressed the accelerator. The drive felt like a punishment. Every red light felt like a stab. Every slow car felt like an enemy. Io's mind replayed memories of Daniel. The way he used to run to the door whenever Io came home. The way he laid his head on Io's chest during bedtime stories. The way he whispered, "Daddy, don't leave me." Before the trip, he wished he had listened. He wished he had stayed. He prayed silently, the same sentence over and over. "Please don't let me be too late." When the taxi finally turned into his estate, his hands shook violently. His throat felt tight. He couldn't swallow. The gate man greeted him. "Olga, welcome." But Io didn't respond. He sprinted to his front door. Silence. Dead silence. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house was too still. Too cold. Too wrong. He walked slowly toward the sitting room, heart pounding in his ears. He called softly, "Daniel, Daniel, my boy." No answer. He called louder, "Folake?" Nothing. He moved farther inside, then froze. Something was off. He could feel it, taste it, smell it. His eyes drifted toward the hallway. And then, from upstairs, a faint, trembling sound. A whimper. Io ran. Io took the stairs 2 at a time, gripping the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. The whimpers grew louder, small, broken. helpless. Daniel, Daniel. He reached the top, followed the sound, and turned sharply into the guest room. He pushed open the door so hard it hit the wall, and what he saw shattered him. Daniel was kneeling on the floor, tiny knees pressed into scattered grains of rice, tears streaming down his cheeks. His face was puffy from crying. His arms were trembling. His breathing was ragged, like each inhale hurt him. Standing over him, holding a belt, was Folake. Her face twisted in shock the moment she saw Io. But Io didn't look at her. He didn't even blink at her. His eyes were locked on his son. Daniel looked up slowly, as if afraid to believe what he was seeing. Then his voice cracked. "Daddy!" Io's heart split cleanly in two. He dropped to his knees and rushed to Daniel, lifting him into his arms. The boy collapsed against him in a sob that came from the deepest part of his soul. "My boy! Oh God, my boy!" Io held him tightly, one hand cradling his head, the other shielding him from Folake. Folake's voice broke the moment. "Io, wait! It's not what it looks like." Io turned his head slowly, and what he felt wasn't anger. It wasn't rage. It was something darker, something slower, something dangerous. "Touch! My son! Again!" His voice was low, too calm, too cold. Folake blinked rapidly, panic rising. Io listened. But he wasn't listening. He stood, picked Daniel up, and walked past her. Folake reached out to grab his arm. Io spun so far she stumbled backward. "Don't touch me," he said. "For what?" "For disciplining him," she snapped defensively. "You think raising a child is easy? He was rude. He disobeyed. Io didn't shout. He whispered. You hit a child who doesn't have a mother. You hit a child who trusted you. You made him beg me to come home." Folake swallowed hard. I didn't. He made me angry. What could a 7-year-old do to deserve this?" Io demanded. She had no answer, because there was none. Io walked out of the room with Daniel in his arms, not slowing for a second. He didn't look back. He didn't breathe properly until he reached the car. He placed Daniel gently in the back seat, covered his legs with his jacket, wiped his tears with shaking hands, and kissed his forehead repeatedly. Daniel whispered, voice barely a sound, "Daddy, don't leave me again." Io broke down. He cried right there beside the car, forehead pressed against his son's small shoulder. This was the moment a father's heart turned into a storm. A crowd had already gathered near Io's house. Neighbors who heard the shouting, neighbors who heard Folake's voice, neighbors who'd seen Daniel's bruises days earlier but didn't want to interfere. When they saw Io carrying Daniel out, people murmured. Some gasped, some covered their mouths. Mama Kai pushed through the crowd the moment she saw him. "Io, is he all right? Jesus, look at this child." Io didn't respond verbally. He nodded once, tight-lipped, jaw clenched hard. He held Daniel protectively, wiping his tears again. Folake stormed out of the house, head disheveled, face flushed with anger. "Io, don't you dare embarrass me. Bring that boy back inside now." The crowd turned. Mama Kai stepped forward sharply. "Are you mad? Look what you've done to this innocent child." Folake hissed, "Mind your business." It became my business when I saw him trembling outside with Bruises. Mama Kai shot back. Neighbors chimed in. "I saw him kneeling earlier." "Folake, you went too far. You're wicked. You lied to us that you were treating him well." Folake swung around, screaming, "All of you shut up. You don't know anything." Io finally spoke. "Enough." The entire street fell silent. He walked toward her slowly. Daniel held tightly in his arms. "You looked me in the eyes," Io said softly, "and told me you loved my son." Folake's face twisted. "I did, but he's stubborn. He's 7. He disobeyed. He's a child. He made me angry. And you hurt him." Folake stopped talking. Io's voice rose slightly, pain leaking through every word. "You wanted to be a wife, but you never wanted to be a mother." Folake's mouth opened, but no words came out. "You entered my house and saw a child without a mother, and you abused him because you knew he had no one else to protect him." Everyone watched. No one moved. Folake shrank backward, suddenly realizing she had no support, no ally, no excuse. Io shook his head slowly. You'll answer for everything. Folake tried to reach for him again, but Io backed up. You will never come near my son again, he said. He turned, got into the car, and drove off, leaving Folake frozen in shame, neighbors whispering, and the truth finally exposed. The explosion had happened. Now came the aftermath. Io drove like a man possessed, one hand on the steering wheel, the other holding Daniel's small fingers. He checked on him every few seconds. Are you okay? Talk to me. Are you hurt anywhere else? Can you breathe? Are you dizzy? Daniel shook his head, too tired to speak. Io's eyes burned as he drove into the emergency section of the nearest hospital. He carried Daniel inside and shouted, Nurse, please help me. Someone help. Nurses rushed over immediately. One touched Daniel's arm gently. Daniel cried out in pain. Io's chest tightened. Easy, easy with him. A nurse guided them to a room. Another began examining Daniel. What happened? She asked. Io swallowed. His stepmother beat him. The room paused. The nurse exchanged glances with her colleagues. They had seen cases like this before, but seeing a child this small, this bruised, this scared, it always hurt. They examined his knees, his arms, his back. Every time they touched a tender spot, Daniel flinched. Io paced the room like a caged lion, running his hands through his hair, muttering prayers, cursing himself for not listening earlier. At one point, Daniel reached out weakly and whispered, Daddy, I'm sorry. Io stopped. He knelt beside the bed, tears falling. Sorry? For what? My boy, you did nothing wrong. Daniel cried. I told you, but you didn't believe me. Io felt the words hit him like bullets. He placed his forehead against Daniel's. I failed you. I did. But I promise you, never again. Never again. A nurse approached him. Sir, I'm sorry, but we are mandated to alert the authorities. This is a case of child abuse. Io nodded. Do whatever you need to do. While nurses worked, Io sat on the bed beside Daniel, stroking his hair gently. He whispered stories, sang softly, kept him calm. Hours passed. Daniel drifted in and out of sleep. By the time the doctor arrived with a full report, Io had aged 10 years. The doctor sighed. Your son suffered physical trauma. Bruises on his arms and legs. Knees scraped. Signs of prolonged kneeling. Emotional distress. He'll need time and therapy. Io nodded slowly. Will he be okay? He whispered. With love and care, yes. Io exhaled shakily. Love and care were things he would never fail to give again. The hospital called the police immediately. 2 officers arrived, Officer Anu and Officer Balagan, both stern-looking, sharp-eyed, and ready for answers. Officer Anu approached Io. Are you the father? Io nodded. Yes. My name is Io Oganimi. We need to ask you some questions, she said. What exactly happened? Io inhaled deeply, voice cracking. My wife beat my son, locked him in a room, forced him to kneel on rice, starved him, hit him with a belt. Officer Balagan scribbled furiously. How long has this been going on, sir? I don't know, Io admitted painfully. I was in Abuja for work. I trusted her. My neighbor alerted me when she saw Bruises. And the suspect? She's at home. The officers exchanged a look. Officer Anu asked quietly, So, do you want to press charges? Io didn't hesitate. Yes. Daniel stirred in his sleep. Io touched his forehead gently and whispered, You're safe now. The officers nodded. We'll go to the residence now. We'll bring her in for questioning. Io didn't respond. He just sat there, staring at his son, the only thing that mattered, finally safe in his arms. Word spread quickly. By the time Io stepped out of the hospital hallway to catch his breath, he found 2 familiar figures rushing toward him, his elder sister, Bisi, and his uncle, Baba Jide. Bisi reached him first. Io, where is he? "How's Daniel?" Io tried to speak, but emotion clogged his throat. Tears he'd been suppressing all day finally spilled. Beesie held him tightly, rocking him gently the way she used to when they were children. "I failed him," Io whispered, voice trembling. "He told me, and I didn't listen." Beesie pulled back, held his face in both hands. "Listen to me. The only failure is not fixing it. You came back. You saved him." Io shook his head. "I left him with a monster." Uncle Jide sighed deeply. "My son, this is why elders say, marry with wisdom, not loneliness." Io bowed his head. The words stung, but they were true. They all entered the hospital room together. Daniel lay in the bed, small and fragile, asleep after sedation. Io stood by his side, brushing his tiny fingers. "He's been so strong," the nurse whispered. Beese's eyes filled with tears. "Ah, this child has suffered." Io's family didn't shout. They didn't scold. They didn't blame. They held him. They let him cry. They let him release the guilt one breath at a time. Later that evening, Io finally sat with them and confessed everything. How Folate pressured him to travel, how Daniel had warned him, how he kept dismissing the signs because he wanted the marriage to work. Beesie placed a hand over his. "Io, you cannot undo the past, but you can protect his future. That's what matters." Uncle Jide nodded. "And from now on, you trust your child first. Adults can lie. Children rarely do." Io swallowed hard and looked at Daniel. He made a silent promise. Never again. Never again would he put anything, loneliness, love, pride, above his son. That night, he slept sitting upright beside Daniel's bed, holding the boy's hand firmly. And for the first time in days, Daniel slept peacefully. The next morning, Officer Ballaghan returned to the hospital with updates. "Sir," he said, flipping open his notebook, "we questioned your wife." Io winced slightly at the word wife. "She admitted to disciplining the boy," the officer continued, "but she denied using excessive force." Io scoffed bitterly. "Is kneeling on rice normal discipline? Is locking a child in a dark room normal?" Officer Ballaghan nodded. "That's why we're still investigating. But there's something you need to know." Io frowned. "What?" "We found a pattern." "What pattern?" Officer Anu joined them, holding a file. "Io, Folake has a history." Io blinked. "History?" "Yes," Officer Anu replied. "Her ex-fiancé filed a report against her 3 years ago. Emotional manipulation, violent outbursts, threats. Nothing was proven, but it was serious enough that he ended the relationship." Io's heart sank. "And that's not all," Officer Ballaghan added. "We traced her former workplace. 2 colleagues confirmed that she had anger issues. One said she slapped a junior staff member once." Io sat down slowly. Pieces of Folake's hidden life began to align like puzzle fragments snapping into place. The perfect smile, the calm voice, the overly gentle behavior early in the marriage, the sudden shift the moment he traveled. It wasn't new behavior. It was her real self. He rubbed his hands over his face. "How did I not see this? How did she hide it so well?" Officer Anu sighed. "People like her choose targets carefully. She wouldn't show her true nature to you. Not until she had power over something, or someone." Io's blood went cold. Daniel. She had power over Daniel. He looked through the window where Daniel sat with a nurse, coloring quietly with weak hands. "This is my fault," Io whispered. "No," Officer Anu said gently. "This is her fault. She made the choice. You're now making yours, to protect him." Io nodded slowly. He knew what he had to do. Whatever love he once had for Folake died the moment he found Daniel kneeling on rice. All that remained was a resolve of a father. 2 weeks later, after medical reports were finalized and statements taken, the case moved to court. The courtroom buzzed with whispers as Folake entered, escorted by officers. She wore a plain gown, hair tied back, face pale. She looked nothing like the elegant woman Io married. The mask was gone. Io sat in the gallery beside Beesie, arms crossed, jaw tight. Daniel wasn't present. The counselor advised keeping him away. The judge arrived and the session began. The prosecutor laid out everything. Medical reports, pictures of bruises, statements from nurses, the neighbor's testimony, IO's statement, psychological evaluation, evidence of emotional trauma, and even information about Folake's past complaints. Folake trembled as each piece of evidence was read. At one point she burst out, "He was rude. He was stubborn. I was trying to train him." The judge glared at her. Beat a 7-year-old child with a belt? Starve him? Make him kneel on rice? Threaten him? Lock him in a dark room? This is not training. This is abuse. Folake stuttered. "I didn't mean. I was stressed. I was overwhelmed." The judge cut her off. "Then you should have sought help, not violence." Io stared at her without blinking. There was no pity left inside him. When the final ruling came, the courtroom fell silent. For the crimes of child abuse, assault, and psychological endangerment, the court sentences you to 2 years imprisonment with mandatory therapy and anger management upon release. Folake gasped. 2 years. But I'm a woman. I'm a wife. The judge replied coldly, "A wife is not above the law, and a woman is fully capable of committing violence." She broke down in the middle of the courtroom, sobbing into her hands as officers led her away. Io didn't watch her leave. He walked out of the courtroom with his shoulders straight, lighter, freer, and ready to focus on what truly mattered. His son. Healing didn't come quickly. Daniel had nightmares for weeks. He would wake up sweating, shouting, "Don't leave me." Every time, Io rushed into his room and held him until he calmed down. Therapy sessions began, slow at first, then gradually progressing. The child psychologist worked gently, helping Daniel rebuild trust, teaching him that discipline did not equal fear, that adults were meant to protect, not hurt. Io attended every session with him. During one session, Daniel held a small teddy bear and whispered, "Daddy, will she come back?" Io shook his head firmly. "Never." Daniel nodded slowly, relief softening his face. Gradually, he began smiling again. He began eating properly. He began playing with toys. He began drawing. He began laughing, real laughter, after nearly 2 months. Io changed everything in the house. He redecorated Daniel's room with soft colors and superhero posters. He filled the house with warmth again, fresh flowers, soft jazz music, the smell of jollof on Sundays. He prayed over Daniel nightly. He stopped traveling frequently. He became present in a way he had never been before. One evening, they sat outside watching the sunset when Daniel leaned on him and whispered, "Daddy, thank you for coming back." Io wrapped an arm around him tightly. "I'll always come back for you. Always." The bond between them became stronger than ever. This time, Io wasn't just a father. He was a protector. 1 year passed. Daniel grew taller, healthier, happier. His eyes sparkled again. The fear faded. The confidence returned. Io also healed. Slowly, quietly, carefully. He went back to work, but he planned all trips around Daniel's schedule. He became more involved in school activities. He learned to cook Daniel's favorite foods. He stopped rushing loneliness. And then, life surprised him. A new woman entered the picture. Sade, a school counselor who met Daniel during one of his therapy sessions. She didn't rush. She didn't demand. She didn't try to replace anyone. She simply existed gently, like balm on a wound. Io kept his distance initially, but Daniel liked her. He laughed when she visited. He talked freely. He trusted her. One afternoon, Daniel looked at Io and said, "Daddy, she's nice. She talks softly." Io smiled. "Yes, she does." He didn't propose to Sade. He didn't rush romance. He didn't force anything. He learned his lesson. Instead, he rebuilt his life slowly. The final scene came on a warm Saturday morning. The sun painted the living room in gold as Io packed a small picnic bag. "Ready, champ?" he asked. Daniel grinned. "Yes, Daddy." They stepped outside together, hand in hand. Io locked the door, took a deep breath, and looked at the life he now had, whole, peaceful, safe. He whispered quietly to himself, "Love shouldn't come at the expense of your child." He lifted Daniel into the back seat and closed the door gently. A new chapter had begun, and this time, Io would choose right, and Daniel would grow with love. Not fear,